Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive on a topic that might make your heart race a little bit. Public speaking. More specifically, we're diving into how to conquer stage fright fast.
Uh-huh.
We've got two interesting sources for this deep dive. A guidebook packed with practical techniques, and another document that takes a very unique approach, I have to say.
Yeah,
So let's just jump right in.
let's do it.
Have you found that most people get stage fright?
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly common. Almost everyone I've ever spoken to has experienced some level of anxiety when it comes to public speaking.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a very, very common fear.
I even get butterflies just thinking about it.
Right.
This guidebook actually describes that pre-speech feeling as being thrown into a lion's den.
Right?
Can you imagine?
Yeah, it's a very visceral, I think, description. It really
Yeah.
captures that feeling of vulnerability. And I think that's something that a lot of people experience before speaking publicly. This fear often stems from, a deep-seated anxiety about being judged, about potentially making a mistake, or even worse, completely blanking out in front of everyone. And the thing is, these anxieties are completely normal.
They are normal,
Uh,
but not exactly fun to deal with.
Right.
So what's going on in our brains and bodies when we feel this way?
Well, this guidebook explains that it's our body's natural fight or flight response kicking in.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's that surge of adrenaline that we experience when we perceive a threat.
Right.
Even though public speaking isn't actually life or death,
Right.
our bodies often react as if it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that explains the sweaty palms, racing heart,
Yes,
and the feeling that you want to just disappear.
exactly. Those are all classic signs.
I've experienced all of those.
Yeah. Yeah, the guidebook also points out some other common physical symptoms of stage fright, like trembling hands. You get a dry mouth.
Oh, yeah.
You can even feel dizzy.
Yeah.
These are all perfectly normal physiological responses to stress and anxiety.
Okay, so we've established that stage fright is a real thing
Yeah,
with real physical symptoms.
absolutely.
But what can we actually do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when those nerves hit right before we need to speak. Like, what are some...
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? So
So-
the good news is
Yeah.
there are some surprisingly effective techniques that can help you manage those feelings in the moment. This guidebook actually dedicates a whole section to these in the trenches tactics.
In the trenches tactics.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're going to war against stage fright.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Because it can really feel like a battle sometimes. But yeah, it's like you're right there in the thick of it. You're about to go on,
Yeah.
and you need something to help you right now.
So what kind of tactics are we talking about here?
So think of them as like your secret weapon against those pre-speech jitters.
Okay.
The guidebook highlights a few key strategies. Controlled breathing exercises are a big one,
Okay.
visualization techniques, and something called progressive muscle relaxation.
Progressive muscle relaxation.
Yeah, have you heard of that
I
one?
haven't. What is that?
It's actually pretty simple, and you can do it right at your desk or even, backstage before a presentation.
Okay.
Essentially, you systematically tense and then relax different muscle groups in your body.
Hmm.
And this helps release physical tension and calm your nervous system.
Interesting. So you're basically like short-circuiting your body's stress response.
Exactly. That's a great way to put
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And all of these techniques, they're designed to be quick
Okay.
and easy to implement, even when you're pressed for time.
So no matter how close you are to that podium,
Exactly.
there's always something you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to breathing for a second. I'm curious about like the science behind something as simple as breathing.
Sure.
Like how can that actually help?
Yeah. It might seem too good to be true.
Yeah.
But controlling your breath is like having a direct line to your nervous system. Remember that fight or flight response we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Shallow, rapid breathing is a hallmark of that state.
Okay.
But by consciously slowing down and deepening your breath, you're basically signaling to your body that it's safe to relax.
So when those butterflies start fluttering, we can tell them to chill out just by changing how we breathe.
Pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah. And this guidebook specifically recommends the 4-count method.
What is that?
So you inhale for 4 counts,
Okay.
hold for 4, and exhale for 4.
Okay.
Super simple,
Yeah.
super effective, and you
Yeah.
can do it discreetly no matter where you are.
Yeah. And I like that it's simple because I feel like if I was trying to do something more complicated,
Right.
I'd just be more nervous.
Totally. I get it.
So we've got breathing,
Yes.
we've got muscle relaxation,
fun.
and what was the other one? Visualization.
Yes. Visualization,
Yeah.
another powerful tool.
Okay. And how does that work?
So athletes use it a lot. and performers too. But basically, it involves vividly imagining yourself delivering a successful presentation.
So if you can see it in your mind,
Yeah.
you can make it happen in real life.
Exactly. You're basically mentally rehearsing a positive outcome,
Yeah,
and that helps build your confidence and reduce anxiety.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is all really good stuff.
Yeah.
But I do have one burning question.
Okay.
The guidebook mentions that preparation is key.
Absolutely.
How does that fit in with these, like, quick fixes?
Yeah.
Like, are they enough on their own, or...
That's a great question because you don't want to just be relying on these at the last minute.
Right.
These quick fixes are super helpful,
Great.
but they're even more effective when combined with solid preparation.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Preparation is like building a strong foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and these techniques are the tools that help you finesse and perfect your delivery.
So it's not about relying solely on one or the other.
Exactly.
It's about integrating them
Yes, exactly. It's about having both.
for maximum impact.
Exactly.
So we've talked about preparation and
Yeah.
calming techniques.
Right.
But this other source you provided takes a totally different approach
Right.
to overcoming stage fright.
Yeah.
It's like it throws out the rule book
Yeah.
and says, hey, what if we tried something completely unexpected?
I love that about this source. It really encourages us to rethink our relationship with those pre-speech jitters and explore some rather unconventional perspectives.
Okay, so tell me more about these unconventional approaches. What are we talking about here?
Well, one of the things I found really fascinating is this idea of reframing nervousness as excitement.
Okay.
So instead of trying to eliminate those butterflies,
Mm-hmm.
what if we embrace them
Yeah.
as a source of positive energy?
So instead of dreading those pre-speech jitters,
Yeah.
we should try to see them as like a sign that we're actually excited about the opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's actually a physiological basis for this. You see the physical sensations of nervousness, the increased heart rate,
Right.
the rush of adrenaline are very similar to the sensations we experience when we're excited.
Oh, wow.
So it's really just about shifting our mindset to interpret those sensations in a more positive light.
So it's like telling ourselves, this isn't my body freaking out.
Exactly.
This is my body gearing up to do something awesome.
Yes, exactly.
I like that. What other unconventional wisdom does this source offer?
Well, it also challenges this idea that we need to strive for perfection in our presentations.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In fact, it argues that aiming for flawlessness often backfires.
That makes sense because when I put that pressure on myself, I just get more nervous.
Exactly. And, audiences can kind of sense that too. Like they tend to respond better to speakers who are genuine
Right.
and relatable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we try to be perfect, it can create a sense of distance.
Right.
Whereas embracing our imperfections allows us to connect with the audience on a more human level.
It's like we're just being authentically ourselves
Yeah.
rather than some polished robotic version of ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And speaking of authenticity, this source also offers some great advice for introverted individuals
Okay.
who might feel particularly daunted by public speaking.
Yeah, I'm sure our introverted listeners will appreciate that. What kind of advice does it offer?
Well, it really emphasizes that introversion is not a weakness when it comes to public speaking. In fact, it can be a real strength.
How so?
Well, introverts are often incredibly thoughtful and insightful.
Hmm.
They tend to be great listeners, which allows them to really connect with their audience on a deeper level.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. And because they typically prefer to really think things through carefully before speaking, they often come across as more credible and trustworthy.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's true. It's about reframing those qualities
Cool.
as assets rather than liabilities.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got reframing nervousness,
Yes.
embracing imperfection, and leveraging introversion. What else does this source have for us?
Well, it also delves into some more out there techniques like the alter ego technique.
The alter ego technique, what is that?
So this involves creating a separate persona that you adopt when speaking publicly.
Hmm.
So think of it as a more confident,
Okay.
articulate version of yourself
Okay.
that you embody.
So it's like putting on a mask, not to hide who you are, but to amplify
That's a great way to put it.
certain aspects that you want to bring to the forefront.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
interesting.
Yeah, it's about stepping into a role that allows you to embody those qualities that you associate with confident speaking.
So have you ever tried this technique yourself?
I haven't personally tried creating like a full-blown alter ego,
Okay.
but I have found it helpful to visualize myself as a confident speaker before a big presentation.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how powerful that mental shift can be.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from practical breathing exercises
Thanks.
to the more unconventional alter ego technique.
Yeah, it's been a wide range.
What would you say is like the most important takeaway for our listeners today?
You know, I think after exploring these sources,
Yeah.
the biggest takeaway for me is that confidence isn't something we just like find.
Right.
It's something we cultivate over time. And every time we step outside of our comfort zone and we face that fear of public speaking, we're building our confidence muscle a little bit stronger.
Yeah, it's like any skill, the more we practice, the better we become.
Exactly.
And that's true for public speaking as well.
Yes, and remember, even the most seasoned speakers,
Yeah.
they still get those pre-speech butterflies.
Yeah,
It's just about what we do with those butterflies
that's a great point.
that makes all the difference.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
Yeah, so if you're listening, we encourage you to check out these sources and find what works for you.
absolutely.
And remember, every small step you take brings you closer to conquering that fear.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.